Welcome to Wandering Jews with Mijal and Noam.
I'm Mijal.
There you go. And I'm Noam, and this is our first time doing a live podcast together.
Yeah, it's a bit weird. Slash fun.
Yeah, this is going to be, so your laughs, your cries, your screams are all going to be heard on the podcast feed.
Yes.
It's going to be...
Protests. Just kidding.
But this podcast is our way of trying to figure out the Jewish world. We don't have it all figured out, but we try to figure it out together.
For those of you out there, we're really so happy to be here with you. And as we tell our audience every single week, our favorite thing is speaking to listeners. So please email us at wanderingjuice@jewishnunpacked.com or call us at 833-WON-JUICE.
I always say this. It's not wandering Jews. It's wondering Jews.
I have an accent.
It's not you. It's not you.
It's a little bit.
It's not you. It's just autocorrect. Always happens on emails. It's wondering Jews. Okay.
Thank you so much for joining us. It's really so special for us to be doing this first live recording, and we're so excited to be able to share it with you.
It's amazing. It's amazing. For those of you listening at home on your podcast app of choice, Mijal, tell the people, what is the GA?
The GA. So, by the way, I kept telling people back at home that I was going to the GA, and they thought it was like the UN General Assembly. So that's, the next live recording of Wandering Jews.
Right. They're going to
but
us.
Totally. But this is the General Assembly of the Jewish Federations of North America. And it's a very special meeting where Jewish leaders and professionals, lay leaders really get together and speak about issues that matter and connect with each other. I will say, by the way, that my first GA was 15 years ago here in Washington, D.C., where I met my hero, Nathan Sharansky, and where my husband and I first had like an encounter where we remembered each other. I know, totally. So I know. So the GA is a great place for beautiful connections.
Matchmaking.
Yeah. That's the GA.
And,
and by the way, we're just so grateful to the GA and JFNA for hosting us here and for giving us this opportunity. It's really exciting.
Mijal, mazel tov to you.
For the wedding to my husband, 15 years?
15 years ago.
No, just kidding.
It's a big deal. You met your husband here, so if you give shadchan gelt, you should make sure to give some money to the GA. Are you going to do that? Yeah.
That's an Ashkenazi minhag.
Okay.
We don't do that. I know.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. But no, I'm not just wishing you a mazel tov on the marriage to your husband from like 30 years ago.
Yes.
So that's a wonderful thing. But I'm wishing you a mazel tov on being the scholar in residence at the GA.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
What does it mean to be a scholar in residence at the GA?
It means that I would have the great privilege of sharing words of Torah with all of you during the plenaries. So I'm really looking forward to that opportunity.
What a treat for everyone. Amazing. So let's get into it. Let's do this. So it's an absolute joy, an absolute privilege to introduce our guest, the one and only Meghan McCain. I'm sure most people, we're saying nice things about you first, Meghan. Okay, so I'm sure most people here know Meghan. Meghan McCain is a New York Times best-selling author, host of the Citizen McCain podcast, and former co-host of The View, which is super duper cool. She also founded Citizen Kane Productions. I love this, to uplift female-led stories in American media. That's awesome. It's amazing. So first of all, big clap to that. So with that, I'm so excited to bring on the stage Meghan McCain.
Neil, thank you. Yeah, hi.
Okay.
No, sure. Interviewing me at night. Thank you. Thank you all so much for having me. This is my first live podcast, and this is the latest I've ever taped. And mine is taped because I swear a lot, so I will try and keep it under control for a classy audience.
Yeah. And Megan, you said anything goes, right? We can ask you anything.
Yeah.
That's what you said. I'm holding you to that. Okay, well, welcome.
I'm not scared.
You're not. Welcome to Wandering Jews.
Thank you.
So good to have you. Before we start with our hard-hitting questions, we do start with a question from listeners that kind of like lets us to ask questions about our lives and who we are when we're not podcasting. So we have a question from Layla, who I hope I'm saying her name right, Layla. She asked, what's a hobby that you wish you had time to take up?
So I have a garden that I tried to start growing tomatoes in, and then it was all eaten by birds, and I gave it up, and I have dead plants in my yard, and it's a mess. And so I wish I had more time and bandwidth to garden more. That's a very like old person answer, but I think post-COVID, everybody started gardening, and I was like, oh, maybe I should like, if the apocalypse comes, I should figure out how to raise vegetables. But I wish I like had more time for that, but it's honestly quite boring, so I stopped doing it.
That's awesome. I want to go visit the garden. I'm thinking about it. Meanwhile, Noam, what's a hobby that you would like to take up?
I'm so interested. Do you garden ever yourself?
Do I garden ever? No. Whenever anyone gives me plants, I'm pretty good at killing them. Okay. It's very sad. I try not. No, I'm just not good at like watering them. I don't mean that I do it on purpose. But Noam, what's a hobby that you wish you had time to take up?
Just imagining how sick that would be if you.
No.
Terrible thing to do.
No, that's not who. Come on, Noam. That's not who I am. Yeah. Go for it.
Yeah, there's a correct answer to this question.
Yes.
There's always a correct answer.
What's the correct answer to this question?
Pickleball. It's pickleball. That's the correct answer. That's the correct answer to the question. Pickleball. If I had more time, I would just be playing pickleball at all times.
Okay. So why don't you, Noam?
I haven't yet figured out how to take up the time to do it, but I'm ready. What about you?
Yeah, I feel like my answer is also like, not that yours was like an old person answer, or like, something, there's nothing wrong with any of our hobbies. But, I spent one summer in Jerusalem. I staffed a birthright trip. I went to Yeshiva University for undergrad. Wonderful. Thank you. Also, thank you. Also, a little bit like, I was a little bit sheltered. So then I stuffed a birthright trip. And suddenly, like, I understood a little bit more the college experience in America. It was delightful. And I ended up staying in Jerusalem, and I signed up for a tour guiding course. It was all with like professional tour guides and me. And I basically said, I have a month and I just want to hang out with you guys and like walk around the old city and point to stones and say, let me tell you about the history of this. So if I could take up a hobby, I would take up tour guiding.
That is the most. Yeah.
Is that okay?
It's the most intense hobby I've ever heard in my life.
Yeah. Sorry. That's me a little bit. We have this. Am I the intense one? No?
Between us, I think maybe a little bit. Yeah. But it's good. It's good. It's what we do.
Good. So Meghan, actually, I want to ask you questions. When I saw you, I got emotional. And when I think about you and your work, I just think about all the different times this year when I opened up Twitter or Instagram and I saw things that you've written, calling out anti-Semitism. And you've done so not only this year, but you've done so for many years already. And speaking as a staunch friend and ally to the Jewish community. In a way, what was special about it is that it's been unambivalent, unambiguous. And it's a little bit of from my perspective, almost like a sad question. But I want to ask you why there's not that many people that I can think of that I would think of it in this way as a symbol of this kind of friendship and bravery and integrity.
Thank you.
And I want to ask you if you can tell us a little bit why it's not always easy to speak up. So why is it that you have chosen time and again to speak up against anti-Semitism, regardless of where it comes from, and to stand up as a friend for Jews and for Israel?
Well, thank you. That's very kind. I'm really tough and strong. Like I always say, I'm a lover, not a fighter, but I'm a fighter. So check yourself. Like, I saw this coming a while ago. Actually, when I was working on The View, I had this incident on The View, which is, I think, like 5 or 6 years ago right now, where the leaders of the Women's March came on. And as I did research with my producer about the Women's March, I realized that they were wildly anti-Semitic. And I was like, what does anti-Semitism have to do with women and Women's March? And you can YouTube it. I had this moment where I called them out and they wouldn't say that they didn't think Jewish people were termites. And they, long story short, got their funding pulled like a week later. Like it's one of my proudest moments in my career because I feel like I was exposing that. Thank you. And that was the first time that I was like, oh, this is like filtering in places and like bigger spaces. And I didn't see that many people calling it out. It's really easy for people to say Black Lives Matter and Asian Lives Matter and call out all other forms of bigotry, which we should. But for some reason, it's much harder for people to call out anti-Semitism.
Why do you think that is?
I don't know. It's sick. I don't know. I still don't really understand it because anyone who knows anything about history knows that anti-Semitism is a gateway drug to everything else. It's where it always starts. It's the canary in the coal mine. And I don't know. I think just being like a semi-decent person. We should all get on board and call out bigotry and hate when we see it. And where it stems from is, I don't know if you want to hear this.
Yeah, go for it.
When I was growing up, my dad's best friend was an Orthodox Jewish man named Senator Joe Lieberman. You guys probably heard of him. And they were genuinely best friends. And I was around him and his family a lot growing up. And they would like come for the 4th of July and we'd hang out. And they obviously campaigned together in different ways. Like they were running for Senate when they were both running for president, when Joe was vice presidential pick. And I was exposed to just Orthodox Jewish customs from a very young age. And I just, like anything, when you're around it, it's normal. And I really, for a long time, it just wasn't a big deal. I didn't really think about the fact that like we had like a kosher grill when they came to, so like I never really, I know that sounds naive, but when you're young, you just don't think about things like that. And then it wasn't until
kosher grill for Senator
Yes. My dad bought a kosher grill. He actually talked about it at my dad's funeral for them when they would come. Yes. I know, it's so cute. And then, and he was he's passed away earlier this year, and it like gutted me to death. It was horrific. I was so missed, I think, especially in this moment too. And, I think their friendship is always something people look towards them about. And I think just for me, it was, that's how I know so much about Jewish customs and Judaism. And it always felt very normal, and it still does. And I don't think I realized till I got much older that anti-Semitism is alive and well, and now obviously even more of an existential threat than it ever was.
In some ways, it was the proximity for you. Meaning you saw, you got to know someone who was Jewish, and you saw the challenges and the problems. I want to read to you a quote that you said in 2021. Sure. You said, "Anti-Semitism is something we let people forgive a lot easier than other forms of bigotry and racism." And I think that's something we really need to examine as a society. I think that anti-Semitism is still sort of the last form of passable bigotry in America.
I still believe that.
You still believe that? So in the U.S., we just saw from across the ocean, we just saw something terrible happen in Amsterdam, right? Incredibly scary. And
can we call it what it was?
You could call it whatever you want.
It's a pogrom in the streets of Amsterdam, and apparently you're not allowed to say that either on Twitter. So I think name it. I'm banning them.
Okay, so Mijal called it a pogrom.
Why aren't you allowed to say that?
I don't know. Mijal, why are you not allowed to say it?
Well, for a lot of people in the Twitter sphere, am I saying that right? Is that a name?
The X sphere, I think it's called.
Oh, sorry. I keep forgetting. The X sphere, that's whatever you want to call it. The argument goes like this, and there's been a bunch of intellectuals making this argument, saying, oh, the Israeli fans who were there said some like racist chants, which for the record is bad. I'm just telling you what I think about it, just in case. It said some like racist chants, they tore down some flags, and they were just like really obnoxious. And that's why it wasn't really a pogrom. And I mean, we can be on the record to say that that behavior is not okay and that it's unacceptable.
Right.
And we can also say that this was an organized attack by many individuals, that the police had warning and didn't actually act on it. And the Jews were literally beat up. And Israel had to send in planes to rescue them from us. That's a pogrom, no matter what, excuse or justification we can give for what happened.
Okay, so, Mijal, just on that front, and Megan, I'm gonna get to the question in a second, but I want to just stay with that for a little bit. Today, what's today's date? November 10th. So 86 years ago, is that right? 86 years ago was Kristallnacht. And what happened that led to Kristallnacht was a man by the name of Herschel Greenspan. Have you heard of him before? So he was a Jewish person who was going through a lot, and he killed a minor German diplomat. And the killing of that minor German diplomat led to Kristallnacht. So two things could be true at the same time. And that's, I think, what people really struggle with. This idea that the word "and" exists. Yes, something happened. Yes, he killed a German diplomat. And Kristallnacht and rounding up 30,000 Jews and leading to the Holocaust is incredibly unacceptable. And I think people really struggle with this concept of a word that I like to use a lot, which is nuance, which is you just did something that a lot of people feel very uncomfortable with. You said, Mijal, you said that some people did things that they shouldn't have done. And it was a traumatic, terrible awful pogrom. People struggle with that concept. And I think with that, we could do both. We could say that happened, Israelis did that, whatever they did, but that doesn't justify in any sort of way a horrific pogrom that happened in the streets of Amsterdam. I actually reached out to a group that I'm associated with who told me that they would not go to Israel for fear of, as a group, they said that we're not going to go to Israel as a group because it's dangerous. I then reached out to them and I said, I wear a kippah. And we're going to Amsterdam instead of Israel. So I said, now what happens? I said, now how do we deal with that? Should I feel uncomfortable in Amsterdam? And how do we make these sorts of decisions? So I think the question I want to ask you, Meghan, is from your vantage point, we're in our bubble, 15 or so million Jews in the world, 6 or 7 million Jews in America, whatever the number is. Do you think that the language that Mijal used, the pogrom of Amsterdam, the state-sanctioned reality where people were attacking Jews, vilifying Jews, beating up Jews, sending them to the hospital, them in the hotel, staying cornered in there. Do you think that sort of thing can happen in the U.S.?
It depends what city. Respectfully, I think places like New York City and Los Angeles, no offense to my friends who live in both places, are a much different place than Sedona, Arizona, where I'm from. I think if you try and pull that shit around some of the people that I know, like, you're going to get a lot of ex-Marines with a lot to say. There's a lot of stuff I can't say because, again, I got to keep it classy in here. But there are a lot of spaces in this country.
I think it's a safe space here.
Okay.
You can, sorry.
Thank you. When I go home, one of the first things I saw when I went home this summer for the 4th of July was this big banner right outside my favorite Mexican food restaurant that was, that Instagram account Jubalong. It was like a pro-Israel thing from Jubalong right outside my favorite Mexican restaurant. And I was like, we had a friend with us from DC and he was like, we're not in the East Coast anymore, baby. And I was like, welcome to different places. So I don't think that it can happen in some cities. But look, I'm freaked out as much as everybody else is. I went to Columbia University, which is quite frankly embarrassing now. I know, I can't help it, man. I wasn't like that when I went there. I'm 40. But I've said publicly, like, there's just not a chance in hell I would ever send my kids. And they're 4 and 2. There's so much that would have to change, and I just can't foresee it being a space where my children wouldn't be indoctrinated into the hatred of Jews, quite frankly. So, like, there's some cities I have very serious questions about, and then there's other places in the country that I don't at all. And that's kind of a cop-out, but I that's my opinion.
Yeah.
What do you think? I mean,
I'm actually surprised by your answer. You answered that very quickly.
Right.
Like you were like, oh yeah, for sure, I can see it happening in some places in the U.S.
The campus protests have really been very illuminating for me.
Say more.
You see, right? I went to Columbia. When you're seeing right outside New York City's campuses, Jewish students being threatened, their lives being threatened, trying to go to class. When you're seeing some of these emails that are sent around by teachers, when you're seeing the congressional hearings of the student body campus, the professors and the presidents of the school, when Congresswoman Elise Stefanik says, I don't remember the exact line, but like, you're okay with the killing of Jews or the murder of Jews, and they won't answer. Yeah, there's a tone shift, but I do think we are a country of laws and morals, and I think they can try it, but there will be consequences. And I know this is like a mixed political room, but one of the upsides of a Trump win is I do think there's going to be a whole different conversation with the people he's going to put in power in regards to shit like this going forward. Yeah. Sorry for all my liberals in the room who are still depressed. It's been a long week. I've had like 10 hours of sleep all week. So,
so we're going to get to U.S. politics soon. But actually, let me ask you a follow-up question to this. There's, of course, anti-Semitism on the left, and you just give some examples. But I'll be honest, I'm scared. I'm like an equal opportunity scared of anti-Semitism person. Okay, that's like my color right now. Whatever, is that whatever? Like
there's stuff on the right too.
I see it's like a horseshoe theory, right? Extremes on both sides kind of like heighten each other's, extremism, and you definitely see a lot of anti-Semitism on the right. Some of the most popular podcasts in this country are led by people who denied what Hitler did in the Holocaust, or who just like blame Jews for so much of what's happening in this country. Who
spoke at the RNC, that one host you're talking about.
Yes. So I wonder how you, because you were so like clear, like it can happen in, let's say, blue states, not in like very red states. And I kind of see, things. Yeah, I want to hear more from you on this.
Look, I think there's obviously racist, crazy people and big anti-Semitic people with tiki torches, obviously. But what scares me more, like we all know, like the KKK rednecks in the middle of, whatever areas of the country. What scares me more about the left is they're all in power, in Hollywood, in intelligentsia, in culture, in politics. These are very high level. AOC is on the cover of Vogue magazine and going to Vanity Fair after parties. The tiki torch guy isn't. Tucker Carlson's a whole different thing. He has a lot of power. He spoke at the convention. It's bad everywhere, but I'm a little more, I think there are more safeguards on my side than there are on that side. And, I think it remains to be seen. It's too early on in the administration, it hasn't even started, how much influence people like that actually have.
Are we allowed to disagree?
No, you and I, sure.
No, you and I.
Oh, you and I?
No, and Meghan.
I sure. So.
Yeah, we're allowed to?
Yeah, go for it.
I'm not sure that I see it in the exact same way. I think that's
fine.
Wait, in which, okay.
Here's what I heard, that you're more fearful of the anti-Semitism from the left.
I am.
So I think I'm going to, are you really an equal opportunity anti-Semitism afraid?
No, it sounds good.
Sounding good. But are you?
I think so. I think that.
Which presidential candidate didn't choose their running mate because they were Jewish? It wasn't on my side. I'm a really good debater. We can go all night, baby.
Megan, I'm really not a good debater, so I don't want to take you on.
I warned you.
I'm an educator. I don't want to take you on. You will destroy me on this one. I'm just telling.
And he was a better pick, and we all know he was a better pick, and we all know why he wasn't chosen. And she may have been in the White House had she chosen him.
Mijal, I won't put you on the spot to ask you to respond to Megan. Okay, you're welcome. Here's what I think. I think that's really important for people on the right. This is I'm an educator. I happen to have different platforms and work with great audiences to reach out to people. I think it's really important for people on the right to spend their time criticizing what's going on the right, and people on the left to criticize what's going on the left. As opposed to,
I agree with that. Well, I actually like calling out. I like calling out everybody. Again, my argument is just that it's all bad. It's not like anybody likes. It's poison everywhere. Obviously,
well, who's more likely to listen to you?
Who's
people on the left or people on the right? Well, you're actually a tough situation.
Well, do you want to know what actually my agents have done this? I have a 90% female audience, so I need more men listening to me in general. So it's actually just like women. I don't know on the left or the right. I actually have a pretty bipartisan audience. That's true.
That's really special right now. Let me ask you, you were speaking right now about
I'm not trying to scare you. I just I got to defend my people too.
That's to your thing.
Before my next question, who are your people?
I mean, normal Republicans.
Okay.
Probably everybody in this room. Nice people, normal people, people who haven't had their brain broken by politics.
Okay, not sure everyone in this room would identify with normal Republicans.
No,
normal people.
Normal people, yes, we're all normal people.
And your podcast reaches across the aisle.
Yes. I'm lucky. Like I probably, I don't know the exact data, but there was probably more conservatives that listened to me, but, I think because I'm not a Trump person, I'm not MAGA. I think liberals maybe feel a little more comfortable talking to me. Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah. Let me ask you a question. I think in the Jewish community, we tend to talk a lot about anti-Semitism and a lot about some of the problems that we face. And I'm not sure that we are as good at acknowledging our friends and our allies. I would just be so grateful if you could explain to us a little bit, the world of, I'm going to simplify so much, but the world of Christian Zionists, Christian supporters of Israel, Christians allies to the Jewish community. I think in our communities, there's a lot of confusion, a lot of previous assumptions about what this kind of friendship looks like. And honestly, I think we would learn so much to hear from you, to understand this better, and to tell us from where you're sitting, what do we have to do better to actually have a better relationship and a better friendship with?
Is this is it we're confused about Christian support of Israel?
Yeah, well, I was going to say, Megan, what's so funny about the question, Mijal?
Okay.
Go for it. Can I tell you it's funny?
Okay, go now.
What I think is funny?
Yes.
I don't know if anyone else will find it funny.
Okay, just try.
I'll try. It's like we're so uncomfortable with the fact that we have friends.
We're like surprised.
We're like, what's the deal with? Why do you not hate us?
Oh my God, that's so sad.
It's like, what is that? And you're not even Ashkenazi, Mijal. You're like, you don't have the same
Well, do you not
trauma. The same trauma.
Do you not
Same
feel
one.
supported? Do you not feel supported by Christians? Like, is that you don't? No.
No. Wait, everyone said no?
No.
Is it no? Can we do?
has spoken.
What can we do? A raise your hand?
They said no.
Okay, well, no. Raise your hand if. Raise your hand if. What's the question again?
Do you feel supported?
You
by
feel
the
supported by
Christians?
the Christians, whatever that means.
It's not that. Well, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's like half, I guess.
Yeah.
Like, is that right?
I mean,
a third.
Okay.
I'll say that I've heard like competing Christian voices.
Sure.
Right? So honestly, for me, maybe speak for other people, it's almost like a little bit confusing. And there's also like every other week, there's like a different poll, a different survey about like, oh, amongst like young evangelicals, there's less support of Israel. Or amongst this group, there's, yeah, please educate.
I mean, I don't speak for all Christians in the country, obviously, and there's lots of different nothing's a monolith. If there's one thing we should learn about the election, it's like no one's a monolith and no group of people's a monolith. I can only speak for my life and my experience. A month before October 7th, my mother and father-in-law were on a trip to Israel that was hosted by their church as I think a spiritual pilgrimage for them, and they had a wonderful time. And I know a lot of Christians. Mike Huckabee, of all people, like leads tours of Christians to the Holy Land.
I should join him as a tour guide.
Yes, you should. Go to the tour guide.
So yeah, that's like my dream, actually.
I think,
kidding.
Obviously for a lot of Christians, it's the birthplace of Christ. And look, I mean, we're a Judeo-Christian nation based on Judeo-Christian values. I feel an affinity to that because I think the same way that I feel an affinity to Israel for being a democracy, we have shared aligned values and, shared aligned faith on some level. And, I'm sad to see that so many people in this room do not feel supported by the Christian community. I don't know the answer to that. And I'm sorry that so many of you don't feel supported, but in my church and in my faith and in my life, there's, at least for Israel, there's a great support emphasized for Israel. Again, apparently not strong enough though for this room.
We might just not say, yeah.
Well, I was going to say, so there's the support for Meghan. I'm probing here a little bit just to understand a little bit better. Remember, I told you a little bit how I was raised
by psychologists.
By psychologists. Yes. So like it's genuine. It explains a lot. I know. So I'm genuinely trying to understand this. Would you say that within your community, there's when you think of the concept of being supportive to the Jewish community, is it supporting Israel? Is that what that means?
I mean, I can only speak for myself.
Yeah. By the way, and I was going to say
for all Christians in America.
But and the same thing is true for Jewish, because there's when people say the Jewish community, I know.
Sure.
Yeah, that's like, come on. There are so many Jewish communities within the broader Jewish community.
We don't represent the Jewish community either.
We represent a few people.
So you're asking like, what do I?
Yeah. From what you see, and like when you say to support the Jewish people, does it mean, what does it mean beyond Israel, or is it really synonymous with supporting Israel?
No, I mean, we have to support our Jewish brothers and sisters, and we have to support Israel. That's what I believe in. It's a faith-based feeling from being a Christian woman, and then also just from my politics that I believe Israel is the only democracy in the Middle East. So it's a very precious and important diplomatic relationship that if we lose it, I really think it's like not to scare everyone, it's going to be like the beginning of World War III. I think it would be cataclysmic for the United States of America. I don't know the answer to this because I can only know in my life and my circle and my brothers and my family. I come from like a really hardcore Christian conservative family, all my brothers in the military. And when October 7th happened, my brother said, I look forward to showing them why America doesn't have universal health care and where we spend our money. The joke being that we spend it all on our military. And, my brother was just like so enraged after it happened and would have like easily gone and fought given the opportunity. So I think that's most soldiers who have fought against terrorism for the past, 20 years. Yeah. No one wants to see Muslim extremism taking over anywhere. And, I think it's easy for any Christian to understand or any American to understand that if someone came into your neighborhood and raped people and burned babies, how would you react? And what would you do? I don't know. I don't speak for all Christians. There's lots of different subsects of Christianity too.
Can I ask one more question on this, Mijal? Then you go on. Are you cool with that? Okay. My next question, though, you asked it a little bit, but I want to get Meghan to reflect on this a little bit more. Why is it the case, if it is the case that young evangelicals are less enthusiastic about Israel compared to previous?
Is that true?
I saw the
think
one
so.
survey, but it's hard to tell.
But that's not something you've seen.
I'm not evangelical. My in-laws are.
Okay.
And they're like I said, they took a pilgrimage to Israel. Maybe this is true. I'm so sorry. I do not know. I'm
Not something you've seen. Okay, cool. Awesome.
Great.
If someone has a better answer for this, by all means, jump in.
Yeah. No, I think we should talk a little bit about U.S. politics.
Sure.
Yeah, the elephant in the room.
Lighten the mood.
Yeah, I really want to lighten the mood. Yeah. So Meghan, I was really taken. I hope I'm describing it correctly. That you openly said that you would not vote for President Trump.
Yeah, I did.
And that you would not vote for Vice President Harris.
Yeah, I didn't vote for either of them. I wrote in.
Did you say who you
Yeah,
were?
who did you write? Who did you write?
My dad. That's like I always do. Sorry, it's a cop out. Sorry. I think that votes have to be earned, and I have like a lot of whenever I have like a lot of guilt in my life whenever I do anything that I can't live with, and I just had a hard time thinking about. I'm also an insomniac, so I was like, I would have a hard time justifying this to my conscience, either choice. And I also don't know how I'd explain either choice to my kids. So I'm sorry if that's a cop out. People really hate it. People are really angry with me that I wrote in. I mean, people are like angry, but you have to earn votes. And neither of these people inspired me, and both of them scared me. So that's how it works.
So
For me, I know. Vote with whoever you want.
No,
Don't yell at me. It's like, right? Everyone's so raw right now. Freaked out.
So, we're still learning about like the voting patterns of American Jews. There's been some exit polls, but we're still learning about it. I would say by and large, American Jews have still voted Democrat, even though there are some indicators that in some parts of the country, there has been increased support for Trump. And I guess my first question to you though is, I think your choice, which you said people screamed at you for, represents what a lot of people that I meet felt this way. They were like, I'm not sure I'm happy with either choice. I might vote for like the least bad one, right? Or there's more and more people who are independent. And I'm just curious if there is a trend that you are seeing around you, or if you're just seeing more polarization into two parties.
Like if there's a lot of anger about both candidates, or
if there's more people who would identify as independent. Are you an independent? Would you say that?
No, I'm a Republican. Because I like voting down ballot.
Okay.
Yeah. But I represent like nothing in the party.
Okay,
Most people ended up voting for him. And the last, I think they called it like shy Trump voters, like people don't want to talk about it, but did it. Yeah. That like overwhelmingly happened. And look, he's switched. I mean, I don't know if this isn't really your question, so I won't answer it. Never mind. I was going to go on a tangent about what he was able to do.
Yeah.
Well, he changed every demographic Trump got 20% of black men, 52% of Hispanic voters. He completely has remade the Republican coalition. And again, that's very depressing for our liberal friends in the room and exciting for our Trump supporters, if there are any in here.
How do you feel as a Republican who did not vote for Trump? I can't really tell where you are right now with this election.
I'm super zen because I saw it coming and I predicted it, and I wasn't shocked at all. So I just am going to, what can we all do? You just got to press on and try and make the best of it and continue using our voices. And, These are really weird political time. I would love to go back to the days of my dad and Joe Lieberman, but the one thing we've learned the past few election cycles is Americans don't have a taste for it. In the primaries, we continue picking the most extreme candidates, and it doesn't really pay off to be moderate. I guess unless you're Senator John Fetterman. I mean, he's sort of like a bright light for people, I think, in the middle, right? Mm-hmm. I really like him. He's my favorite Democrat, so.
I'm between like him and Richie Torres. That's like they're competing up there.
You leaned into what I wanted to talk to you about, which is actually slightly depressing to me. You basically said that extremes, that's what's in right now. That's the vibe. That's the fad. That's what everyone's moving to. And I was going to ask you, because polarizations suck. I'll tell you what I mean by that. We all talk, everyone here at JFNA is going to say, we're anti-polarization. Sure. Everyone's going to be like, polarization is bad. We don't want to make sure, we don't want partisanship. We don't want people to be on extremes on the other side. And yet someone seems to be benefiting from the polarization. It's not at all a bug. It's a feature of the world. Someone is making sure, not someone, many people are either benefiting from it. They're enjoying it. It could be social media that's benefiting from it and enjoying it. But you just said the days of Senator Lieberman and Senator McCain, your father, both heroes.
Thank you.
Sure. No problem.
It's very nice. Thank you.
You got it. Those days are over. And like for me, from my work, the way I see my work, if I'm going to be a political animal in any way, is to actually be more of a moderating force in the world to a degree, sure. Right? Like I really believe that the polarization is destroying the fabric of Jewish identity, is destroying so much of what it means to be able to have a meaningful conversation. Like we step into debates as opposed to education, as opposed to learning, as opposed to exploring all those things. What do we do about that? You really think that 12 years ago, 16 years ago, it's something that it's something to be nostalgic about? It's not something that we could work towards in the future?
I need to also emphasize that we're like 80 hours out from the election. So we're all still processing, the extremism. I don't think it's over forever, but I'm confused why so many people come up to me and say like, I miss your dad. I miss the days of whatever. I miss whatever, when we are not voting in the spirit of that now. Right. If you are
really behaving that way.
Yeah. And if you're a moderate on either side, I mean, Kristen Sinema, the senator from Arizona, didn't run for re-election. She's a literal independent because she couldn't win a primary. And she's a very independent senator and voted very independently. So I'm less hopeful, but I also think politics is cyclical and America's ever changing and our political system's ever changing. So I'm always like shining city on the hill person. I always want, I always hope for the best. But right this second, I don't feel as optimistic as I once did because it's just people, all the people that use, like, I didn't know that running for Congress, like, so many people did it just to be a cable news star, to like dunk on you. Like, it seems like and you know who I'm talking about on both sides. I didn't know that there were so many people that were just using like the vehicle of running for Congress and Senate just to be on TV. It seems like completely beside the point.
TV? What was this, 1997?
Or podcasts, excuse me. What did I say? Excuse me, to be on the Wondering Jew podcast. To really get that.
That's what you want to be. That's a big deal. Exactly. There you go.
It's depressing.
Yeah. I was very lucky to learn from Rabbi Jonathan Sachs of Blessed Memory. And he used to teach that there is a big difference between optimism, which is that you're not, and between hope. And hope is a commitment. It's a decision. It's a choice that we make to work together for something better. So I actually want to ask you, I'm really proud that in 2016, I think it was, I applied to become an American citizen. And that was, thank you.
Congratulations.
I became one, by the way. You were one, right?
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
That was really meaningful for me. And when I think about American values that move me and the dream of America and the promise of America, and I think of your dad, of like what it means to be a person of integrity who valued country over party, and who really represented this like beacon of hope. So I actually wonder, we have in Jewish tradition an idea that often we tell stories about someone to elevate their soul and to strengthen their memory by inspiring all of us. So I'm wondering if you could share with us either a story or a teaching about your dad to help give us hope in this moment.
I mean, I have so many stories about him, and for anyone that ever knew him or met him, he loved being alive so much. He was so funny. He always found humor in darkness. One of my things my friend was asking me recently, what do you miss the most about him? And I was like, his humor. He was just always making everyone laugh. And if you he was the only sitting senator to ever host Saturday Night Live. I know, it's pretty cool. And he was just he's very much alive in all ways I think a human being can be. And I think it's because he almost died when he was younger, because, he was obviously tortured and almost died. And he really celebrated the smallest things. I remember we had a hot dog one time at a baseball game, and he was like, this hot dog is like the best hot dog. And I was like, you just find joy.
I love your father.
I know, like you just found joy in the smallest things. And he loved people so much. I can remember like right before he was diagnosed, when he got sick, I was living in New York and he came to dinner. We went out to dinner at this like tiny restaurant that I loved so much. And some people recognized him, and the maitre d' was trying to get them to leave. And he like stood up and he was like, what are you fucking doing? What do you think I became a senator for? I love everybody. And he like had them come over, take pictures. Long story short, he's like buying drinks for these random people. And I'm like, it's supposed to be dad-daughter time. And the thing that I remember and I take with me the most is like, and this is so cheesy, so please just forgive me, but like every moment is a gift here. It really is. I love being alive. I'm so happy that I get to be here with you on this podcast and with all of you tonight. Like, it's beautiful. And even when it's like the country feels so divided and so dark, like being alive is such a gift. He died of terminal brain cancer. That you die, the prognosis, if you have glioblastoma, you die between anywhere 4 and 12 months. Like that's the lifespan. That's it. And seeing that happen to him and going through the process of being a caregiver for someone with that short amount of life, I'm so fucking happy to be here. I'm so happy to be alive. And even when it's dark and crazy, I'm so happy to still be an American and still be in this like amazing experiment. So that's what I take from my dad. And he gave me that gift. Like he is where I get that from. And I really like, please take that. Everything is wonderful, even when it's dark. And that's what I take from him. I very rarely get sad or depressed for very long because you just shake it off and move on. And it's like, then you'll have a great hot dog, you know? It's like always something else.
Love a good sausage. Okay. Meghan.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. You two are so wonderful. I see why your podcast is so popular. I wish I had a better answer for why Christians aren't supporting Jews. That's something I'm going to take home with me and analyze.
It's not the takeaway.
Well, it's not the state. I think we're...
Well, if you don't feel it though, like everything in politics is about impressions and feelings, everything. And if the Jewish community in this room is not feeling that, and this is obviously an influential room, we got a lot of work to do on our end. And that's something I will take away from me from this conversation this evening. And I'm very sad so many of you feel that way. I really am. It's very sad. I didn't know that, truly.
Listeners, this is a reminder to everyone. This is a live episode of Wondering Jews. Subscribe to the show to hear more reflection, conversation with Mijal and me.
Every week.
Every week. Yep. Every week. Check out our other shows on Unpacked, our YouTube channel, Unpacked, Today Unpacked, Big Jewish Ideas, Unpacking Israeli History. You got to check out all the pods. So, Meghan, thank you so much. Thank you all for being here.
You guys are wonderful hosts, helping people, and all of you are doing such amazing work in this room. And I just want to thank you again so much for having me. It's been a real privilege to be here.
Thank you. Thanks, Meghan.
Yeah.
Wondering Jews is a production of Unpacked, a division of OpenDor Media. Subscribe to Wondering Jews wherever you're listening to this pod, and follow Unpacked at all the social media places. Just look for @JewishUnpacked. And most of all, be in touch. Write to us at wonderingjews@JewishUnpacked.com. This episode was hosted by Mijal Bitton and Noam Weissman. This show is researched by Hona Dodge. Audio is edited by me, Rob Pera, and we're produced by Rivki Stern.